Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Connection, where industry expert Doug Plucknett interviews global leaders from the maintenance and reliability industry. Each week, new leaders will join us with insights and tips to help you grow in your career, and they'll share a good story or two while they're at it as well. The Leadership Connection is produced by the industry's leading networking and learning community, Mobius Connect. Doug, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it might be that you're tuning into this podcast. This is the Leadership Connection, and I am Doug Plucknett. Today I have a very special guest, Drew Troyer. I've known Drew for, it's got to be going on 25 years now. Drew is a principal at TA Cook. He has a master's in liberal arts at the prestigious Harvard University, an MBA from Oklahoma City University. He is the founding editor of the RAM Review and has published hundreds of articles on maintenance and reliability. Drew, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you, Doug? Thank you.
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while since you and I have seen each other face to face. We used to see each other on the conference circuit on a regular basis, and now it seems like we just have chats once in a while on Facebook or LinkedIn, so it's good to catch up with you.
It's great catching up with you, too. Yeah, I kind of miss those days. We had a lot of fun.
So prior to his work at TA Cook, Drew was the CEO of Noria, and so he's got really endless stories of helping clients with maintenance and reliability. But I'm going to ask him more personal questions really on leadership and how he got started. Tell us a bit about your career, Drew, and your education and where you come from, your background.
Okay. Yeah, so of course I'm a reliability engineer, and I got into the industry because I was at Oklahoma State University, and Oklahoma State University is pretty well known for, at least at the time, something called the Fluid Power Research Center. And the Fluid Power Research Center evaluated a lot of concepts related to contamination control. So how does contamination in a lubricant affect the life of a bearing, a gearbox, a hydraulic pump, so on and so forth? And so I was assigned to a research project supporting a little company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they were developing a number of different instruments for evaluating contaminant levels in lubricants. This little company also created what are called multi-pass filter test stands for determining the beta rating on filters, so how efficient are filters, because a lot of that work came out of Oklahoma State. So if you look at an ISO cleanliness code that came on an oil analysis sample, that came out of Oklahoma State. If you look at a beta rating on a filter, that came out of Oklahoma State. Well, the founder of this little technology company was Jim Fitch, and so we kind of hit it off. And so he actually hired me right out of school, and so I went to work and have sort of been in this game ever since. We did some things with technology and development, and that ultimately got sold to a company called Intech IRD, which ultimately was acquired by Rockwell Automation. So at the point of transfer to Rockwell Automation, Jim Fitch and I formed Noria Corporation in 1998. And Noria Corporation specialized in lubrication, oil analysis. I co-authored a book with Jim called Oil Analysis Basics, and I was pretty specialized in lubrication for a really long time. I was co-founder of the International Council for Machinery Lubrication, and they do a lot of certification for people who are machinery lubrication technicians and oil analysts and so on and so forth. So I was really focused on lubrication, and then around 2005, I kind of got bored with it, and I wanted to kind of go back to my reliability engineering roots. And so I developed a course called Plant Reliability in Dollars and Cents. And over time, I sort of migrated away from lubrication, and in 2010 separated from Noria. We kind of divided up some intellectual property, and so on and so forth. And it was a great separation. In fact, last week I was at the NORIA conference. It was great seeing everybody at the Reliable Plant Conference. And since then, I have been focused on more strategic aspects of asset management and reliability engineering. However, around 2014, I was actually working with one of my clients and trying to identify I figured out a knack. I have a knack for determining how much asset management is worth. So if we were to transition from, say, the 25th percentile as asset managers, what would be the economic impact of moving to the 75th percentile? But I can recall at some point I was working with a client. We were doing very strategic asset management work, and I go through their plant, and what do I see? I see clear signs of poor lubrication. I see fasteners that are loose. I see visible signs of misalignment on pulleys and things of that nature. So that inspired me in 2014 to go back, if you will, to my technical roots, and I created a new work stream, which was an educational course and some associated consulting called Focus on FLAB with Proactive and Precision Maintenance. And FLAB is an acronym for fasteners, lubrication, alignment, and balance. And from a mechanical and electrical perspective, if machines are properly fastened down, they're properly lubricated, they're aligned, and they're balanced, they're going to run a long time. So since then, I've really been focused on that initiative. Strangely, you mentioned Harvard. I'm very environmentally oriented. So in 2018, I decided I was going to get a degree in environmental sustainability. I selected Harvard, and I did that. And I'm hoping going forward, I can show some industry leadership in the area of sustainable manufacturing. So currently, I do serve on the ASTM E60.13 Committee for Sustainable Manufacturing. In between, along the way, I picked up a Master of Business Administration. But that's my 30 years in asset management in a nutshell, Doug.
Well, that's a lot of stuff right there. So looking back on your career, you started, as you said, at Oklahoma State and helping out with research and study on contaminants. But when were you think you were first recognized as a leader? Was it before then or sometime afterwards?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. So I think I was probably initially recognized as a leader when I began publishing, and I've always been an advocate of publishing. I'm a very avid writer, and once I started publishing, I think my leadership became recognized more broadly. So this probably is going to be a bit of a blast from the past, but I'm looking up right now in my office. I'm looking at, I framed my first article. That was 1993 in PPM Technology. Do you remember that technology, Ron James publication, Doug?
Yep.
Yeah. So it was called Streamlining Oil Analysis with Field Testing. And once I started publishing, then I think my thoughts became more widely available. And I think at that point I was viewed as a technical leader. Leadership takes different forms. There's technical leadership, which is probably my strongest area of leadership, because I'm generally considered a technical expert in my area. But then there's also organizational leadership. And I would say that my ability to inspire people came along a little bit later. But as I developed myself as an educator, it was, I'm going to say probably 1996, 1997, I would be educating primarily engineers, right? And the engineers would say, okay, all right, that's great. What we need you to do is tell that to our boss, because we can't tell it. We can't say it that way. So I would say that's probably about the time frame at which I sort of transitioned from an industry participant to an industry leader. I'm going to say it's probably that 1997, 98, 99 time frame.
it's interesting. You know, it's one thing to teach people; it's another to get them to go out and do it. And that was kind of a reverse scenario for me. You know, I had lots of success with working with groups when I was at Kodak and getting guys to go out and do things and going out and doing them with them, right? And then for me, it was a published article that got me recognized, and then companies interested in calling and say, hey, can you come help us? And at that point in time, you're like, oh, I don't really work as a consultant. I work, you know, I'm working at this company. And then all of a sudden the light goes on and goes, oh, you know something, there might be an opportunity there, right? So interesting, because I don't know that I have my first article framed. I do know I have my first cover framed.
Yeah.
That is hanging up. And it is one of those things. Now, I can say that I've always considered myself to be somebody that writes a lot until I look at you, right? And I go, there's a guy that nearly monthly has something published, you know, whether it was Reliable Plant or MRO Today going way back, Reliability Magazine, and so on. Along with writing, I just want to see if this is true. This is a theory that I have. Most writers are readers, right? So looking at that, is there anything that you've read, a book or something that you could recommend to our audience? You could say, boy, this is one that had a change in my career and my life.
Gosh, so I am a very avid reader, and there's so many books that have really changed my life. There's too many. There's too many. You mentioned, I mean, within our field, I think probably the two books that encapsulated what asset management is all about was the book Uptime by John Dixon Campbell, and then you mentioned prior to us starting, you mentioned Ron Moore.
Right.
So Ron Moore's book, the seminal book.
Making common sense, common practice.
Making common sense, common practice. But then I go back and, you know, there's quite a number of books that have really inspired me in terms of different aspects of asset management. So I probably should have had a list of these books. So what's going to happen is we're going to go through this and they're going to come to mind for me. But but within our space, I would say Common Sense to Common Practice, Ron Moore, and Uptime by John Dixon Campbell probably, as a young guy, helped to shape me. So I came up starting with the really hardcore technical aspects of our field and then morphed into the, I would say, more managerial oriented aspects of our field.
Right. And we came into this business somewhere around the same time, at least that, I came in around 2000, 1999, 2000. And I could say that at that point in time, we had Jack Nicklaus and Ron Moore, and both of those guys were so approachable in terms of, sucking up and getting information, right? And just having general conversation, sitting with somebody and having whether you sat down with them at lunch or dinner or to have a beer at some point in time, they were so approachable. It was one of those things that a great time, and that's one of the things that I know that you have that same mentality when you see people come up to you at conferences and shake your hand and spend time with them, and that's really what makes attending those still worthwhile today, right? Is
I agree with that. I mean,
on, right?
You mentioned Jack Nicklaus, and when I was still pretty early on, we're going back 20, 25 years here. Jack Nicklaus, one of the the godfathers of our field. There's absolutely no question. And when we say Jack Nicklaus, for those who don't know, it's not the golfer; it's the asset management expert, Jack Nicklaus. But he kind of took me under his wing a little bit because he saw me. I think I don't know if I delivered a presentation or we just had a discussion. It's too long, but I've always been a big advocate of procedure-based maintenance, procedure-based asset management. I think that you've probably seen me preach about this more than once, and there's a reason for that. When you look at high reliability organizations, when you look at organizations in the aviation industry, or you look at a nuclear power plant, they're very procedure driven. I don't know if you've seen the movie Sully, but what a fantastic movie. Sully, the guy who landed the A319 in the Hudson River, and everybody walked away. I mean, miraculous. But when you look at the movie, when they're recreating what occurred in the cockpit, when both engines went out because of bird strikes, which is a really random event, when both engines failed, the first thing Sully said was, "What's our procedure for this?" So when you look at high reliability organizations, they tend to be very procedure driven. So I don't know, it was a conversation or something, but Jack and I published a few articles and gave some presentations on procedure-based maintenance, and I continue that today. For instance, when I look at work plans for maintenance or operations or so on and so forth, I'm a real stickler for the fits, tolerances, quantities, and quality details. It's not enough to say tighten the bolt. I need to know what the torque is. It's not enough to say grease the bearing. I need to know what is the quantity. It's not enough to say check the pressure. I need to know what is acceptable. So Jack has been, he was real, having somebody like him take you under his wing, what it does is it gives you the confidence to carry forward. And that confidence then, now at my age, enables me to take other people under my wing, I hope, and inspire them to do great things. And that's how we have generational improvement. But yeah, we had the benefit of being guided and mentored by some pretty neat people. I mean, you mentioned Ron, you mentioned Jack. There's a host of others.
All right. So looking at leadership, and I know that being a CEO at one point, you had to at least hire or promote people. What are a couple traits that you look for in leaders that are important?
So to me, the number one and the most important trait in a leader is passion about what you do. Because if you don't have passion about what you do, then you're an administrator. You're not a leader. To me, passion is the most important the most important behavioral characteristic of a leader. The second is to recognize what you can't do, right? Because what happens is when you're a leader, you're thrust into situations where you have so much on your plate and you have to decide what's important. And it's not just a matter of deciding what's important, but deciding who's the best person to do that. So for instance, if you have 100 items that are on your plate, you got to figure out what are the 10 items that are most important. And of those 10, where should I spend my time? Where shouldn't I spend my time? So speaking from experience, when I was a CEO, I found myself, and I failed to actually manage this effectively, I found myself in situations where I was doing things that I was not particularly good at, and as a byproduct, I wasn't doing things that I was particularly good at. So I think number one is passion, and number two, learn how to swim in your lane. And if you're not great at something, you need to get great by associating yourself with somebody who is. If it's one of those top 10 items, if you're not great at it yourself, you need to become great by outsourcing or associating yourself with an individual or a group of individuals who are in fact great at executing that requirement.
Excellent answer. I like that a lot. That the passion is a big thing. Getting and this is the tough part with. I know it's something I struggled with when I was young myself, was that you think that leadership comes with is a title, right?
No.
And it's not till you get older and more experienced that you learn that, holy smokes, Martin Luther King never had a title, Gandhi never had a title, Albert Einstein never had a title, yet they were all leaders, right? Eventually, they were given titles, right? People say
Sure.
Martin Luther King was a leader of civil rights movement, right?
Yeah, can I make one more comment on that, Doug?
Yeah.
There's another really important trait of a leader, and I really think this is essential. A leader needs to have the ability to absorb criticism and to deflect praise. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the difference in a leader and an egomaniac is an egomaniac wants to absorb all the praise and take all the credit for what gets done. What a leader does is he or she absorbs the criticism, but then deflects the praise, because ultimately you're only going to be as good as the team that works with you, right? And so, pushing that praise out, deflecting that praise to the team that actually got things done, that to me is another very important trait of a leader, a true leader.
Yep. Reinforcement is a big piece, right? Letting people know that you appreciate what they do. Right?
Yeah.
And that what they do doesn't go unrecognized. So, there's always this controversy that leadership is learned, or is it a natural skill? What do you think about that?
It's always is it inherent in an individual's kind of DNA and their genetic makeup, or is it something that can be learned and developed? I think it's a little bit of both. I think I really do. I'm a better leader now than I was 20 years ago. I know that, so I've learned some things. A lot of that is, the school of hard knocks, right? So I've screwed up enough things that I at least I know a couple things not to screw up. So it's always it's always this question mark: is it learned, or is it sort of innate in the individual? I think it really is a combination of both. I would say that a person has to have at least certain foundational elements in place that are innately ascribed to that person, but I think that those traits can be improved, they can be refined, and they can be developed. But for instance, if you lack personal confidence and you are unwilling to put yourself out there, that's your sort of innate personality. It's going to be, I think, difficult to be a leader. But I'm going to say that there's a counter to that. Leadership takes a lot of forms. We always think of the person as, who's in charge, the formal leader, as being the leader. But we take a plant environment, for instance. You may have a master craftsperson who has absolutely no authority at all, wants absolutely no authority at all. However, if something goes wrong at the plant manager's not going to do anything until he consults with that guy. That's right. Power. That's leadership. So leadership takes a lot of forms. Sometimes it's very quiet. Sometimes it's very much behind the scenes. So I don't think that there's just one definition of leadership.
Couldn't agree more. So we're coming to a time limit here. So
Okay.
the last question I want to ask you about is, looking back on your career, what would you say is your greatest success?
Gosh, it's really, really difficult for me to say. I think that I've left my mark. I'm not the only person that has left my mark. We obviously learned from Jack and Ron and many others. I learned from Jim Fitch and his father, E.C. Fitch, who was the professor at Oklahoma State. Gosh, it's really, really, really hard for me to say. It's been a good career for me. I'm not done yet, so luckily, even though I'm old, I'm still healthy, and I'm still very, very passionate. Arguably, I'm more passionate than I was even 15 years ago. I mean, I really am. But I think maybe if there is one mark I've left, it's not something that you can really put your arms around. But I think my passion for asset management and the benefits of having a reliable plant, not just the production benefits. I don't think there's also safety benefits. There's environmental benefits. I think my passion for what we do hopefully has inspired other people to contribute and participate in our field.
And that's really what it's all about. Pass it on.
Right? And that's another form of leadership. So, when I write an article and the passion in my voice comes through, I see it on LinkedIn, I see it in emails, that inspires people. And if my writings and, my various rantings and ravings and preachings and teachings inspire other people, then that's great, because all of us is a lot smarter than any one of us. So if we have a large community that's inspired and motivated, I think that benefits all of us, because we want safer plants. We want more environmentally conscious plants. I'm on a wildfire right now because when you look at Department of Energy has done research into manufacturing, and we could conceivably, without any new technologies, just employing current best practices, we could reduce our energy consumption by between 20 and 23%. That's no wild technology. That's just
without batting an eye.
Yeah, without batting an eye. Think of the carbon impact that would have, Doug. Never mind. Look at our natural gas industry. 3.2% of our natural gas that we extract, we process, we transport, we distribute. 3.2% is lost to fugitive emissions. That's 3.2% of the sales that would not pass through cost of goods sold. It would go straight to the bottom line, and it would reduce methane being emitted into the atmosphere. And methane is 80 times more powerful a greenhouse gas as carbon dioxide. So I know I'm old and probably was a little bit too old to get another master's degree, but I'm very passionate about moving forward in this direction and focusing on sustainable manufacturing. And the thing is, a lot of it can be accomplished by better management of our assets. Controlling parasitic frictional losses, minimizing fugitive leaks. I mean, think about air leaks, for instance. Yep. Compressed air leaks. We probably fugitively emit 20 to 30% of the compressed air that we have across all industries. This is very fixable. And so not only do we do better by the environment, but our plants run better and more reliably, and our companies are more profitable and they're safer. So, honestly, I'm probably more enthused about asset management right now as we sit here today than I've ever been in terms of the potential that we can have to impact society.
Oh, that's a great thing. And Drew, it's been great talking to you. I get to plug my book on your last comment, Clean, Green, and Reliable, that I wrote with Chris Olson. So we do share that passion. right?
I know we do. I know we do.
It's one of those things that is, you said, it's easy, right? It amazes me to see companies just blow it all out, right? And they don't care, right?
You know, honestly, this is not low hanging fruit. This is fruit that's on the ground. It's fermenting into wine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just walk around and pick it up. It's that simple. All right.
Yeah.
So Drew, it's been great talking with you and catching up with you today. Maybe we'll do this again sometime in the near future. And I look forward to maybe seeing you at a conference. I can tell you that I've cut way back on those, basically more for COVID and health reasons than anything. Well, I should also add to the fact that I really don't want any more work than what I have at this point in time. So when you show your face, people tend to think, oh, there's somebody we haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah, Doug's ready to work again. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. Well, Doug, it's been a pleasure catching up with you, and honestly, I would very much like to see you in person again as soon as possible when it's safe and everything's good for everybody. But yeah, hopefully at a conference in the near future we'll be able to catch up. So until then, I enjoy our correspondence on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you and see your name pop up.
All right. Take care, my friend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Leadership Connection. We will see you back for another episode next week. In between, we hope to see you in the Mobius Connect community where you can meet Doug and share with other industry professionals at mobiusconnect.com. We'll see you there.